Welcome to Talent Titans, the podcast where we bring you entrepreneurs and leaders from the global staffing industry. I'm your host, Suki Sodi. Now let's jump right on in and welcome today's Titan.
Hi everyone, what are we talking about today? Here, truth of the matter is this industry has been disrupted and will continue to be disrupted. But staffing, we're not going anywhere. So today, I'm super excited to introduce you to one of my guests, Kelli Ryan from Cartwheel, and we're going to be talking all things disruption. Hey, Kelli,
Hey, Suki.
how are
Hey,
you
we
doing?
matched today. Look at us.
There you go. You got the
It's
memo.
the holiday spirit.
There you go, right? How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. How about you?
Same old, right? Those people that don't know you, Kelli, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Kelli Ryan, and I actually have a long tenure in the staffing industry. So 28 years in staffing. That's where I actually cut my teeth as a professional. And I kind of grew up in that space. It was a wonderful experience for me. I have a lot of passion for the industry because it does so much good. It's a great place for people. I always say you kind of have to be a little crazy to be in staffing. Things are so dynamic. They're changing constantly, and we're seeing a lot of that now. But speaking of change, so after being in the staffing industry for a very long time, I made a change over into actually being an industry partner. And I'm with Cartwheel, and we're a SaaS company that's focused on accounts receivable automation. And it's been a great journey for me in a number of ways. So, making this switch, it's allowed me to actually learn more about the industry than I knew before. I thought I knew a lot of things, but I think sometimes in the industry we tend to just focus on our own company and not collaborate as much. And so I've learned a lot about different staffing companies and, moving to Cartwheel and that focus on accounts receivable automation. It was a pain point for me. It was something that, we had calls every week about what was going on with aging and collections. And there's so many manual processes in that still exist for staffing companies in that space. So I was really excited to join Cartwheel and really give back to the industry that helped me raise my kids, buy homes, and just kind of develop me from a professional sense. So that's been my journey.
Amazing. I was thinking this earlier. You went from being disrupted to being one of the disruptors, right? Because technology is here to stay. Whether we like it or not, it is here to stay. And anybody that doesn't have their tech stack sorted out, they're kind of behind the game, right? They may be doing okay running manual, but until you actually embrace tech, and clients want it as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's dive straight in, right? So you already knew a lot of people in our industry just from your time in the industry, but now recently, since you've joined Cartwheel, you've been connecting with leaders at major staffing shows. What trends, themes are truly reshaping our industry, and which ones do you believe are going to have a lasting impact?
So we've seen a lot of things, a lot of change. The industry is right now ripe for disruption.
Hmm.
And when you talk to the end client, so the users of staffing companies, they're looking for something unique and different. They still it's an interesting mix because they want to see something unique, but they also still crave and need that personal touch. If you think about it, in staffing, we're sending people. And so they need that personal touch. What heard a lot about was AI, and there are kind of two camps with this. But in at Staffing World, they had some great speakers about AI and that addressed AI. And really, you're going to fall into two camps. You either adopt it and you continue to progress and you become more efficient, or you don't and there's a very good chance that you'll become obsolete because you'll be too resource constrained. So it's, lots about AI. The gig platforms and digital platforms are a big factor out there in health, both in healthcare and in traditional staffing. And then really hearing a lot about doing more with less. So as margins tend to, right now we're seeing some margin compression, and that's cyclical, right? That depending on the state of the economy, there are a lot of different factors that influence that, but really doing more with fewer people. And how do you do that? And that's really making sure that you are adopting the right technology to ensure that you're removing manual processes or basic processes, and sometimes the analytics. So looking at where do you really need people and where can you automate, and determining what works for your organization in the sector that you're in. So those are some of the trends that we heard in both healthcare as well as traditional staffing.
And with the healthcare one, was there anything that particularly stood out?
Well, what I learned about healthcare is actually, they're a faster adopter of technology than traditional staffing, which is kind of interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
It is interesting because hospitals are not. So if you look at what those staffing companies are having to deal with, they're dealing with pretty antiquated systems within hospitals, but they are adopting technology to improve the customer experience and improve their candidate experience as well.
That does surprise me because, to your point, right, hospitals are still so out of date. And to hear that healthcare agencies are adopting the technology faster, why do you think that is? And I'm paraphrasing here. So you said healthcare agencies adopting technology faster than your traditional staffing agencies. Care to take a stab at why that is? Because I would have thought it's the other way around, that I don't know, I'm thinking technology companies, right? So they're tech companies themselves. They want staffing agencies to be using tech. Why do you think healthcare have jumped into tech faster than their clients have?
Well, I think they realize, I mean, that's a definite pain point, right? They experience that pain point, and then they have their candidates, their, locum tenens, and their staff, the people that they're actually providing staff for, are more savvy. So they're trying to make that experience as strong and as easy as it can possibly be for the talent that they're placing. I also think that, well, we know that from an MSP and a VMS perspective, healthcare is a big user of VMS and MSP. And so the healthcare they're looking for ways to streamline those processes and work faster and smarter. I think that because of that, they are able to propel themselves forward, and they have talent that can actually adopt it quickly and appreciate the strides that they make in improving the overall experience.
That makes sense. So 2024 has been a tough year for the industry. Okay, so depending on what sector you're in, revenues are down by X points. So everyone is talking growth right now, right? So that's top priority for everyone. You were saying earlier on that before we went live, how many companies are now just really investing in their frontline salespeople. What unique factors are influencing the growth conversation this year compared to the previous years?
Well, AI is a factor when you think about what you can actually do to help with predictive analytics and AI. Staffing companies are realizing, well, they always knew, right? This is a people industry. And so it's really developing and understanding the balance of what can I automate and where do I still need people. And so one of the things that we heard from SIA actually was that a lot of companies are going back to pushing their salespeople in front of customers.
Mhm.
So hiring more feet on the street and pushing them out, going back to the basics for that one-to-one contact, and then using AI to look at analytics, what's working, what's not working, and really helping them on that front end process. So account-based marketing and looking at trends, helping marketing teams and sales teams to really understand what works and what doesn't work, that's different than what we did years ago. So, and that's here to stay. That won't go anywhere. And frankly, why would you want it to? If you've got the ability to have AI analyze and use that prediction to ensure that you're on the right path, provide you with the data points to make sure that for whatever sector you're supporting, that you're using the right tactics.
One of the things, you're right, everybody wants sales and they're putting frontline salespeople, business development, and that's where they're focusing. I get that. But I'm just thinking the number of calls and emails I get from lead generation companies, sales companies, we can book your meetings. And I'm just looking at the sales part of it, right? It's actually really overwhelming because you have like everybody is bombarding you with buy our product. I get it. They're doing their job. So that's not bad. But how do I, or anyone listening to this, look at it and say, how do you get rid of the noise and actually end up talking to the right people? I guess what I'm saying is, what are some of the things that buyers should be looking out for?
Depending on your product and where you are in your journey, if you're a younger company, if you're a more established company, if you're a younger company, a lot of times you don't want that first touch to be something that's automated or feels automated. I
Mhm.
mean, AI is getting very smart, and it's learning at a pace that is phenomenal.
Yep.
And so, there are predictions that AI will be smarter than humans in the next 5 years, maybe even shorter, right? So there are ways that you can use technology to help, but you don't want to go overboard. So one of the things that AI requires is it learns, right? And so depending on where you are, again, in your organization, you want to make sure that you're looking at options and starting out small to test what works for your sector, what works for your particular business, and what resonates with your customers. So that's the other thing, is to be very nimble and pivot quickly. So test things. You don't have to go all in with every solution, but where you find there are manual processes that really don't require one-to-one connection, start there, start small, test, and then pivot if it doesn't work.
So that makes sense. But I guess I just want to peel back the layer a little bit more. How do I, as somebody new, relatively new in staffing, look at it and say, okay, I've got all these different options. How do I understand what I need if I don't even know what I need, right? Because all I need is I need more sales. I'm a business owner, been in business 6, 12 months, whatever it might be. I'm just like, I need more sales. And along comes this shiny object that says, hey, I can get you more sales, right? I guess what I'm trying to get to is, what are some of the questions that I should be asking a potential partner, whether it's sales, whether it's receivables automation, whether it's marketing, ATS, really doesn't matter what that is. But how do I, as a person, as a business owner, understand what questions to be asking the company?
So taking a look at your entire solution. So you really need to understand where you are from a technology perspective. I mean, there are companies out there that will help with that, which
Uh-huh.
is great.
Okay.
They'll kind of help guide you. Lauren Jones, for example, at Leap Advisory Partners, is a great resource. So what she does all day, every day, is get to know different types of technology offerings. Then she'll take the time to understand where, each business owner is at, where they are in their stage, their existing tech stack, and where to start. Oftentimes there are kind of hidden levers that you can pull. So exactly,
Yep.
AR automation. You don't often think of accounts receivable as being a growth lever, but it really can be a growth lever. So when you think about problems with accounts receivable and how that trickles into time spent chasing money, chasing, re-providing invoices over and over again. There are basic tasks that the field often gets pulled into that are not sales generating. And so this tools like Cartwheel, where you look and you automate all of those processes, you ensure that your invoicing is more accurate, saves time and allows you to put more resources into things like sales so that they're not focused on collecting and dealing with AR, they're focused on sales. So there are a lot of ways like that that you can look at your existing tech stack to find out where those shortfalls are. And there are companies out there that can also help. So some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself is, where are we spending time that isn't really driving revenue? And start there and automate places like accounts receivable where that could have an impact, a significant impact across the organization.
Yeah, I know. I'd forgotten that you can actually go and engage somebody that is completely independent that can help you with that. And as you were talking, I was thinking, look, where are you doing those repetitive steps, right? My personal opinion, a word of caution, don't try and automate the client interaction part, right? I believe our industry still is going to get stronger and stronger. Those that recognize that automation is important, AI is important, but don't try and automate that sales. One of my biggest pet peeves is inbox gets bombarded. We can drive you X number of meetings. Our sales teams can get you X number of meetings. Yeah, I've never had a conversation with them. And I look at it and I say, as a buyer, I would never buy just off emails. Okay. So you've got to keep that human part of it going. And in my opinion, look at where can we automate the the process, that repetitive task. Some of the things that I saw at Staffing World was just the number of technologies coming out that you can now white label as a smaller business. So don't even have to go out and spend hundreds of thousands building a software, because now it's most of it's on the market and you can then go and customize that. Bridge VMS, who are one of our sponsors this year, their system, you can white label that. You don't have to go and reinvent the wheel, and you're able to stay really competitive. So I think it's important as we talk about tech that we do say you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay, there are products on the market that you can actually take and you can rebrand it so nobody knows it's not your app, for example. Right? Because
That's exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's exactly right. And why, that does save development time. It saves energy. And a lot of these solutions are very affordable when you think about what that does. So I'll refer back to Cartwheel, which, we go very deep into one's accounts receivable. That's our whole focus. We're purpose built for staffing and EORs. And so, partnering with someone like us, we do white label. Bridge EMS does white label as well. So from the customer experience, they don't know that we're involved. They don't know Bridge is involved. They
Yep,
just look at the solution as being more powerful. They look at the staffing company as providing the best experience. And that's what you're looking for, right? Is to delight the customer.
exactly. And customers are asking for, they want to know what your automation is, what your tech stack is, right? Because they want to be able to get, it's that speed to market with the candidate. Also, like I know a couple of different number of staffing agencies that have invested hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars building their own software. When I hate to say it, they could have gone to market and white labeled something else at a fraction of the cost and got it to market a lot sooner as well. So I think it's really important that we do I don't want anyone to walk away from here thinking, oh my God, I now got to go and invest and get some developers and I got to go and do this. No, it doesn't have to be that. You can white label. There are certain things that you can white label which are already tried and tested.
Not only that, but Suki, a lot of us on the industry partner side collaborate. And
Okay.
so we're doing everything that we can to make the staffing companies, which are our customers' lives as easy as possible. So not every technology is a rip and replace, where it's not all of it's disruptive. We sit on top of existing technology so that the processes don't change. You don't have a lot of change management. And there are other companies out there that do that. And so as we partner together with ATS, we partner with other solutions to really provide a seamless experience and a comfortable experience. So again, there's small steps that companies can take, and they actually, staffing companies can encourage that collaboration, because what we all want is for the life of a staffing professional to be easier as well. I mean, they're in a tough situation if you think about it. It's very much people industry, but there are a lot of things that are coming at them. So wherever we can help that experience be better, we're all working together to do that.
I think that's a great point you made, because one of the things I see, people try to be everything to everyone. And that's where the technology fails. I'm just going to pick on ATS as an example, right? Oh, yes, we've got our ATS can do this. It can do the receivables. It can do the marketing side. It can do the candidate engagement. It can do this. It can do this. Great, it can do it. But when you're working with somebody who's actually a niche player, they live and breathe that world every day. So that, and I could be wrong, but certainly from the feedback I'm getting and what I've seen myself, is where people have their tech stack, where they have specialized niche products talking to whoever's next in that process. That's where it works really, really well. So for example, QuickBooks, right? You guys integrate with QuickBooks. You're not a accounting, so you haven't tried to be an accounting software as well. What you're saying is, no, we're the experts on the receivable part, but we know the experts, QuickBooks, so the accounting guys. We're just going to talk to them. So I think that's a really good point you bring up. We need to make sure our partners are talking and encourage that. I would even go as far as saying, if I had something already and I was going to bring in another piece of tech, one of the things I would say is, are you going to be able to talk to these guys? Because I don't want to have to rejig all of that again. I don't want to have to say, okay, well, I've got to throw my ATS out the window now because I want this.
Yeah,
Right?
one of the things that we hear, it's kind of, if you've had a bad implementation experience, it can really, and then you hear software. There's a panic that happens, right? There's just, oh my gosh, I had a bad experience. I don't want to experience that again. I would say to staffing companies who have had that type of experience not to be afraid to look for other solutions. Again, what you really need is to look at whatever you're doing that is manual. Whatever you're doing that's manual, that takes time away from actually driving growth, and looking for ways to automate, to streamline that process. It's going to make it easier on your teams as well as your customers. And so just looking at it from that perspective, don't be afraid, because not everything, as I mentioned before, is a rip and replace solution. So there are a lot of technologies that can integrate and really make your life better. For us, for example, at Cartwheel, we're the ones who take on that integration responsibility. So we don't push that onto the customer. We want to make sure that what we're doing is additive and really doesn't create challenges when you're looking at your existing tech stack, because we see a lot of that. The other thing that many staffing companies have found themselves in is a situation where you have your tech stack is big, and to your point, they're not communicating with each other. So you find yourself doing double entry. You find yourself sometimes having systems that are reporting different numbers. So it's important to take a look at what you've got overall and ensure that you have the right technology in place that's saving you time and really helping you to be more efficient and more effective, especially in these times of, again, doing more with less, with fewer headcount.
I think also what you end up with is you've had this bad experience and you're just like, no, I don't want to go through that again, right? But you're sitting there with all these other pains, right? So it's almost like
Mhm.
pick your poison. And I think when it comes to tech, it's moving so fast. I think a question that I've started asking this question when I'm talking to different tech companies, what is their growth plan? What's that next piece, right? Because I don't want somebody I don't want to buy a tech stack, a piece of tech that is only going to do this, but they haven't thought about tomorrow because again, the disruptions are coming, right? And the reason that question came up is there's a client that I've been working with and they've hit a wall because the system they have cannot easily integrate with other techs and they've spent a lot of money in spent about $1 million on this. They've spent about $1 million, but they can't get the system to talk easily, and it's just creating such a headache. So I think it's important to be asking your vendors, okay, so what's going to be version 2, version 3, version 4, whatever that might be down the road, because you want to be able to see that they understand our industry and they're almost, for lack of a better word, looking ahead and they're able to see, okay, well, this kind of disruption's coming down. We're nimble enough to be able to adapt to that.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to make sure technology is changing and the landscape. We talked about the disruption that's happening in the industry. You look at gig platforms, digital platforms that are out there, and really what the future of the industry is going to look like as we move forward. And so your technology partners need to be nimble. So they have to be able to pivot. And as they hear of changes and in the landscape of whatever they're supporting, they have to be able to respond and adapt quickly to those changes to ensure that your needs are met as a staffing company and that your customers' needs are met. And so if you have a technology that's not adaptive, that is not going to be a good place as you look at the future of where we're headed from a tech perspective.
So here's a question that's just come to mind. Should I be worried about something new coming on the market? Because you hear, I don't know what the stats are, but a large number of these startups fail, right? If I've got something, for lack of a better word, relatively new on the market, should I be trying to understand where their funding is coming from? Because if they're bootstrapping that, where's the R&D development? Where are their developers based? Or do I not need to worry about that as a buyer?
Well, I think you do need to be cognizant of it as a buyer. One of the things that was mentioned there was an executive panel at SIA's Healthcare Staffing Summit, and they were talking about MSPs and making sure that as you even as you work with MSPs, ensuring that they're solvent and that you're going to get paid. So those are all things that, yes, a staffing company should definitely look at. They should look at the level of expertise and how deep a product goes within the space that they're supporting. So whether it's accounts receivable, whether it's payroll, whether it's AI for recruiting, are they solving a problem that exists and that is pretty prevalent in the industry? And do they have a solution that is answering that problem and correcting, finding solutions for that problem? If that's the case, yes, you want to look to make sure that it is a sustainable product or technology and that they have the experience, they have the elements that you're going to need over time. So yes, you want to look at solvency. You also want to look at the product itself and again, how adaptable the product is and is it really solving for an issue that is broader. If those things all exist, chances are you're going to have success, especially if there's integration capabilities. If you've got strong integration capabilities and you're focused in a specific area, that again will just lend to a stronger offering that you don't have to worry about going away.
I don't think I would buy anything that doesn't integrate easily with other um, platforms because I want my tech stack to play nicely in the playground with all the others. I don't want to be going, okay, well, I have to go into this system now. I've got to log out now. I've got to go in over here. Now I've got to go in over here, regardless how amazing they are, right? It might be a great product. I'm not saying that's not, but I know from my perspective and my team, I want to make I want my team to adopt it. So I think that's where what I'm trying to say is when you're buying this technology, how easy is it for your team to adopt it? Because us salespeople, we cut corners all the time, right? Let's
Yeah,
be
we do.
honest, right? We do. We do. I admit I'm really bad because I'll be just like, oh yeah, I got this tech, I got to go and do it this way, right? And then I'll go and do it after the fact. But so I'm not really a good role model here, but we want it to be easily adapted by our team, adopted, sorry, by our teams, right? We want them to be like, oh, yeah, this is easy. So they don't want to be going over here, over here, over here, because what they're going to do is they're going to go with the one they know. Might not be the best one, but they're going to go with the one they know because that's comfortable there, right? And do I need to know where the developers are based? I was having this conversation at lunch yesterday. Is it really important to know where the developers are based for a product we're buying here in North America?
You want to make sure that you have developers in who understand the industry. So that's critical. And so it does help to have at least primary developers in North America if that's where you're
Yep.
buying the product, because not the staffing industry doesn't look the same in Europe
Hmm.
as it does in North America. It doesn't even look the same in North America, in Canada, or in the US, right? So if you have primary architects who are based in the area that you're looking in, that's very helpful. And you want that to be varied. If you're a global company, you want developers in different areas, in different markets, to ensure that you have a well-rounded team, again, who understands what the staffing industry looks like in that particular market. So, yes, I think it can make a difference to really where those people sit.
Amazing. I was also thinking as you were talking, people need to be talking to their peers, colleagues, other agencies, in other words, and saying, who are you using? We have this secrecy about it as an industry, right? We don't play nicely in the playground like we should. But pick up the phone and call someone and say, hey, this is a problem I'm trying to solve. Who do you use? Right? Or what platform do you use? Whatever the case may be. And get that true reference testimonial, right?
Yeah,
Get that.
I think that that's starting to happen, Suki, but it is so one of the things that I recognized in my professional, my time in the industry was you tend to put your head down, you're networking and you're really collaborative with the people within your teams and you're looking for tech partners, but oftentimes you do leave out networking and really getting to know people within your industry.
Mhm.
And that is such an important element of development. I think the industry could do a much better job of supporting key initiatives that are important to the industry as a whole through collaboration. So we're seeing a little bit more of that, which is great. But I don't think, based on what I've experienced past an executive level, there's not a lot of that really getting to know your competitors, being able to ask questions like you mentioned. What are you using? What works for you? Because I do believe that companies will share that.
Yeah, I think if somebody asks me, I share it. And it is because they understand your market, right? It doesn't mean, yes, somebody gave you a referral and then you don't do your own due diligence. That's not, that's not what we're saying. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in your staffing experience, it was all the US, correct?
Correct. Yes. I
And
was
now
with a company that was just domestic.
okay, now since you've been with Cartwheel, um, I know you're selling into Canada because you're going to be at the summit next year.
Yes.
And where else are you personally selling into? What other
Well, we're
regions?
selling into the UK, we're selling into different parts in Europe. So we have the ability to work with companies across the globe. I mean, there are some areas that more of the third world countries that would be a little difficult because of just because of cost. But for the most part, we're working everywhere, wherever our customers need us.
So what's the difference you found? Let's just say the the buying psyche between the US, what you were used to, and Canada, for example.
So the staffing is looked at a little bit different in those markets. I've had conversations with companies, let's say in the UK, where there are a significant number of staffing companies. I mean, it parallels almost what's in the US
Yep.
with a much smaller market. And so it's very different use case. And in Canada, what I've noticed about the Canadian market is there's a desire to have that collaboration. We're seeing that now in the US as well. And as I mentioned before, that collaboration, I believe, existed at a C-suite level, right?
Okay.
You've got CIOs and CTOs who get together and they talk about what technology they're using, what's working, what's not working, what they're experiencing. CEOs talk to CEOs, but really helping your teams a level down to continue to grow and develop, you need that collaboration. So I'm seeing that in Canada. I think the
Nice.
UK is very collaborative as
Yep.
well. They want the industry as a whole to progress. They want the industry to be seen as something that is positive and that end clients want to utilize. And so I think the US is getting there as well, as they're really looking at what can we do together, how do we pull together to ensure that the industry has what it needs to be successful, to improve NPS scores and really improve adoption. Because there is this point that we're in right now where many companies have elected to hire direct instead of going through staffing. And again, this is cyclical, so it will turn
Yep.
back around. But when the industry comes together, that helps. And so selling into those and helping make connections has also been really fun. So how can you connect different technology partners? How could you connect different staffing companies that might be going through something similar? There are other companies out there like ClearEdge that are working on really that collaboration as well. So they have a rising program where C-level people can talk, and then they have different levels so that they're really encouraging that collaboration and communication. And so I know I digressed a little bit, but
That's
I think
okay.
that was a loaded question. It's been a lot of fun to see this from a different angle.
Yeah, because one of the things you nailed it with the UK. It's definitely far more collaborative, talk a lot more. But you're right, it's also a very saturated market. So when I moved to Canada, one of the things that surprised me at the time was I just thought everybody was like that, right? But it wasn't. Hence, this is our third summit in April 2025, um, and there's a real appetite. People are willing to get in that room. They're willing to talk. They're willing to share. The very first year I'd done it, they weren't talking. And I remember saying something, I can't remember my exact words, but saying something to the effect of, look, you're worried they're going to know your trade secrets, your client base, if you talk to them. Well, if they just do their job and pick up the phone and make a sales call, you can find out anyone's client base, right? It's not a secret. So I think it's just building that trust and starting to create that environment. I'm definitely seeing the shift here. And of course, the US and England, well, they're the ones that love going international, right? So you were saying earlier about how the number of agencies there for the size of country and revenue to be had there, but a lot of them have got big, massive international operations. And they couldn't have done that without having the right tech partners in place, neither.
Exactly. Well, and you know what's great that I didn't really know about much about was the EOR space. So if you've got a company, if you're in a different country, you want to enter the US or you want to enter Canada from the US or anywhere else, I mean, that's a really great option for many
100%.
companies as well.
Yeah, shameless plug to one of my sponsors, right? ASIN. So if you're looking to enter the North American market, check out ASIN. They've done an amazing job. We've referred clients to them who are looking to just go from Canada to the US, right? And it's getting that partner, it's getting that right partner. Look, I know we've gone on longer than we intended, and I think you and I could carry on. So, look, final closing thoughts when it comes to tech. Someone's watching this and they're like, oh, this was overwhelming. Now I get it. What should their next step be?
The next step should be evaluating the current tech stack, looking at places where there are gaps or holes. Again, you want to identify where you're spending time and that's not generating revenue. And again, so shameless plug for Cartwheel. Again, this is a great place. We do integrate with any company that has an open API, and we make that process easy. So look for ways that you can make meaningful change by taking small steps, and not it doesn't mean you have to completely disrupt what you're doing. And if you're overwhelmed, seek out partners like I mentioned, Leap Advisory Partners or others that really help look at the tech stack. So if you're not big enough to have a CTO or a CIO, look for help in that area. But again, there's a lot of technology out there like Cartwheel, not it's specifically what we do, but in different areas where you can make a huge impact without really disrupting what you have going on. So it doesn't disrupt your entire operation.
Amazing. Amazing. Kelli, thank you ever so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you doing this today. You take
Thank
care.
you, Suki.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talent Titans, brought to you by Recruitment Professional Forum, where they're building a grassroots community for professionals and leaders in the recruitment industry to collaborate, advocate, and advance the profession. If you liked or were inspired by what you heard, make sure to follow, subscribe, and even leave a review. It lets more talented recruiters like you find the show. Until next time, keep on being a talent titan.